The first time I was just moving my lips, but hey, how are you?
Nice one.
All right, very good.
Great. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June hottest on record 2020 executive committee meeting.
Except for tomorrow.
Well, that's not an executive committee meeting.
Worst tomorrow?
Yes, first tomorrow, but
nobody's going to go vote.
I know. Sorry.
Oh,
So I'm Jessica Chait. I'm pleased to call this meeting to order, and I really do want to thank everyone for braving. Everyone looks tired and hot. So thank you for braving the temperatures. I was just joking to Jesse. I was worried about not having quorum, and then we were just joking that maybe you guys wanted to let MCB4 pay for your air conditioning for this next hour or hour and a half. Don't let that be a reason to extend this meeting longer than it needs to be. We actually do have a fairly short agenda, so all the more reason. I appreciate you guys coming out.
some members there.
So just a few, the policy, we continue to adopt a hybrid meeting policy with members of the public and press invited to join remotely. Extraordinary circumstances allow people to participate remotely, and that includes disability, illness, unplanned or emergency caregiving. Excuse committee members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually, and board members who are joining via Zoom, please leave your cameras on. Our policy can be found on our website, and of course, this meeting is being streamed live on our YouTube channel. The transcript is being recorded and available to the public till the end of days. We have the agenda here in front of us, but tonight, before we jump right into it, I was going to provide an update in the chair report. But Carl offered to agree to come join us this afternoon to give a report on the Western Rail Yards. Many of you have been working on this diligently, following the issue, and we're kind of midway. We're past the ULURP phase, but not totally through the process. And I thought it'd be great, best to hear directly from the council member's office on where we are, given how much work and concern we have for this issue. So I'll turn it to Carl, and then we'll go back to our regularly scheduled agenda. Hi, Carl. Thanks for coming.
Hi, everybody. Great. Good to be with you virtually. Nice to see everyone. As Jessica mentioned, I just wanted to come give a quick update, where we are with this, the Western Rail Yard proposal and land use actions needed for that. So as Jessica mentioned, on June 11th, the City Council passed a land use action that will allow for an amended plan for the Western Rail Yards. The plan now includes 4,000 new homes at the site, which will be a mix of condo and rental units. Of those rental units, we were able to increase the affordability commitments from the 2009 plan to have a minimum of 625 that will be permanently affordable. We were also able to increase the size of the planned green space from 5.5 acres to 6.5. And of course, it will contain the new daycare and school, which were commitments, previous commitments in the 2009 plan. I'll also note that there's no longer a casino as part of the project, but where we are now, there is still a pilot agreement that needs to be legislated at the council, which is going to be key to the financing. So we're working diligently to secure this agreement. There are still a couple of pieces that we are working through, particularly a couple of asks of the High Line that we're working to get stronger commitments on. But we are working very closely and are aligned with the administration as well as the Speaker's office in these conversations. And we are working to finalize these details, and we are anticipating a final vote on this at the next stated council meeting, which is slated for June 30th. So that's generally where we are at the moment. We feel pretty confident that we're going to have this all done by the 30th. And that's thanks to a lot of the work of this board as well. So that's where we are.
Carl, thank you. Before we take questions, we have some newer folks. Can you just say a word about pilots, define the term and just how typical they are for a project like this, how confident you are, et cetera?
Well, there's a lot of pieces to a pilot agreement. Like I said, we are aligned with the administration on and the mayor on this. So we feel confident that we're going to have it done on the 30th. This whole deal is a little unusual. It's a very large project. But we are confident that we're gonna, have the deal sewn up by the end of the month.
And sorry, and just again, can you define the pilot, like payment in lieu of taxes?
Oh, sorry,
and,
yeah,
like,
well-
the scope of the ask that's being discussed.
I'm sorry, well, I didn't hear you. What was the second part of your?
Just any more details about what a pilot is and what it means, in terms of,
Definition.
and in terms of like the scope of funding that's being, that is represented in the pilot.
Yeah, so it's pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes. This plan would, it would essentially legislate that taxes from the Eastern Rail Yards project could be used to fund portions of this project and the platform specifically that is needed to support the development. Especially because there's not a gaming portion, which was key to their original financing structure. So this allows to fill that gap so that the project can be built.
Thank you, and for those, just note that we all hopefully will remember that paying for the platform was determined to be the most expensive and capital intensive part of the project, which made why initially we were told they wanted a casino, which was to help offset the cost associated with that. Thank you, Carl. Are there any questions, comments?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, Carl, the 625 affordable, they are all going to be on site, right?
Yes, that's what I understand, yes.
Okay. And they are going to be built in priority before the commercial buildings are built?
So I'd have to come back to you on the exact timing and sequencing. We would like to, the plan is to have them built as fast as possible. And but I would have to, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I have to come back to tell you about the sequencing.
Leslie?
Hey Carl, it's Leslie, how you doing? Is it decided if there are any family units? All the affordable housing, especially a lot in our district, are either studios or 1-bedrooms. So when does that conversation happen, when we get 2 or 3 bedrooms for affordable units?
So I mean, we anticipated will be a mix of studios, 1-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms, and some 3-bedrooms. A lot of this will be determined on the assuming that they're going to be using the 44 tax, the new housing 44X, the housing program. So, but I don't know if we're at the part in the process where I could speak to that in great detail yet, but we anticipate a mix of unit sizes as part.
I know
of
that, I'm sure there's a mix, but the developers are always pushing for studios and 1-bedrooms, right? Because that ups their smaller, it's a smaller space and it ups their unit total. And I don't know how hard we're gonna push back. The community, you guys gonna push back on, we desperately need family units.
That is heard, and I was told that they do anticipate 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms as part of the mix. I don't know the amount, but I definitely hear you on the need for those family units.
Thank you, Carl.
Yeah.
Hey Carl, on the school, any updates, like conversations you've been having with the school construction authority, the type of school, number of seats, any details yet on that piece of the project?
Right, sorry, I don't have that. I don't know. I'm not able to speak to that tonight.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, yeah, John.
Yeah, so first, to my blessing, to my knowledge, and Carl, you can check, but I read the agreement, and I see nothing about the unit mix whatsoever. There's no agreement for that. Second thing is the timing, the request that was made was that at the close of at the completion of the first office building, before a C of O is granted to that first office building, then in fact, the construction start on the residential. Was that request achieved?
He said he doesn't know sequencing.
No, I'm asking
Yeah, I'm-
very specifically whether that, 'cause I understand that there's one thing in the ULURP agreement, then is that. But then there's the next thing in the question of the pilots, because the pilots are able to be. You can attach conditions to the pilots.
Right. I don't want to speak out of turn on this. I know it's an important point, so if I'm happy to come back to you with that. With that.
And then the last thing is, I think it's important that we dial down the spin a bit on the increasing the number of units. Because the 2009 points of agreement had all different kinds of units, which included, for example, the MTA site, the DEP site, off-site things. And we have not doubled with this, the number of units. That's just not accurate. So I don't know how that came out. I have heard that said over and over, just not accurate. And I'll send you the points so you can look at it, because it's very specific. It's not the case. You seem
So-
very quiet.
Well, there will be 625 affordable units as part of this plan.
Right, just that it's not doubling the commitment that was made in 2009, that's all.
I just said it increased it.
Okay, so Carl, thank you for making the time. I think it sounds, you're hearing, not surprisingly, in many cases, like the committees, Matt's asking about schools, his committee is obviously focused on that. Joe from housing, et cetera. So I think after, we wish you guys all the luck for June 30th, and as we don't want to lose sight of really understanding these commitments, and then as Leslie said, making sure we don't lose sight to be able to continue to advocate for the things we care about, whether that's prioritizing outstanding commitments from the Eastern Rail Yards or the sequencing or family units, whatever that may be. So we can work with your office to figure out like the right time to do that, but making sure that just because we don't hit this very important next hurdle that we don't continue to work to refine the project to reflect the needs of the community. And thank you for coming.
Let me speak to Matt's concern about the school. So Matt, number one, they have to get a letter from the SCA saying that they want the school to be built. And we asked specifically that letter get refreshed, if that's the threshold for getting the school to go. And the idea of having the residential site start first, holding up the CO on the first commercial building, that's because that's where the school goes. So if we get that tied together, they must both get the school underway and the residential underway.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
they propose they want to wait until they do the second commercial building, which is literally 5 to 6 years or 8 years from now.
Okay.
But the school's going to residential building.
The residential build, that
Because
is
the new tower itself is now residential, not commercial, it's a school.
correct, but there is nothing that says that gets built until after the C of O is issued for the second commercial
Right,
tower.
but you had just said the school is in the commercial tower, it's not though.
No, the school is in the residential tower.
Okay, all right.
We just want to tie the C of O for the first tower to the residential and therefore the school size.
Yeah.
Is the size of the school dependent on the size of the units, right? I would imagine.
No, it's like 650 seats. It says it in the 2009 agreement. There's a number of seats there, right? 650.
Okay, Carl, thank you. Stay cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, so now we'll go back to our scheduled agenda, and want to thank Roberta for really taking the lead our comments on the mayor's charter revision, and I'll turn it to you, to walk us through.
Sure, Justin, do we wanna, just for ease, put there was a outline
Yeah.
effectively in the Dropbox, it should be very straightforward, we can kind of just go through it very quickly, and if there are points where I received an edit from Justine, but if there are further, sort of refinements, you can make them and, then just turn this into a proper letter that can be provided in the Dropbox, hopefully as soon as possible. The aim of this particular exercise, going through all the committee testimony and putting it into a letter, is to provide testimony to the Charter Revision Commission, which is going to make recommendations for what belongs in the ballot in November. Here, we're sort of synthesizing, expressing the concerns of the different committees that took up the issues here. I think the general consensus was that there is a great deal of concern with amending the charter, that there are, potential opportunities to remove public input and that, preserving public input in the process of making any sort of changes, whether it be land use changes or otherwise, is extremely important. That the charter is a foundational governing document of the city and should be changed, cautiously. That this is an attempt to change the balance of power a little bit more toward City Hall and away from the communities, and so that's something I think we would criticize. And there's a belief that local input and decisions is good, and so with that, I think we centered some comments on local versus citywide needs. There was an opportunity to comment a little bit more about comprehensive planning as well as fair housing. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to advocate for the comprehensive planning process and to push for a better evaluation of the cumulative impacts of projects, so that resources ultimately go to places where there are a lot of new housing units being built. This has come up, I think, repeatedly with a number of projects recently where we've had the environmental impact statements and they're project by project, they're legislatively mandated, we could change them, but that's not really what's on the table right now. We're looking for something that would evaluate the impact of these projects more holistically, and this is an opportunity to advocate for them. There is, opportunity to center affordable housing plan as sort of a proof of concept for community-led planning, and note that as well as kind of brag about what we've done over the past, decades in terms of housing production. And then, sort of utilize that to just note that communities across the city should be doing their fair share, but that we have, concerns about ultimately removing discretion from public input here. So specifics will matter, and there's not a lot of specifics in the report. There are a couple of other areas where we're covering land use. There's a section on reducing process costs, there's value in reducing costs, but the North Star for us is, preserving public review. There are concerns about the definitions with small projects. And, I think there was a lot of concern / opposition with the zoning administrator process and anything that would ultimately limit public review. Similarly, on public land, they're, very much oppose major acquisitions or dispositions of land without public review. Gonna use that as an opportunity to speak very briefly about NYCHA, even though I think it would probably fall a little bit outside of this, given that's the federal nature of the project. Talking about the concerns related to corruption in the broadest sense, we may wind up bringing in an example if we have the space from the district. There was in Housing, Health and Human Services as well as a WPE. I think there were questions, could there be updates or dispositions in a very de minimis manner, of a couple of feet or in order to, you know, help construct a additional part of the school or something. If it's accessory and if it's de minimis, then perhaps there might be some openness to them, but just broadly, there's not interest in this. You know, would like to have a section on Mueller. I think that there was a little bit of there was a robust discussion, a little bit of variance between Housing, Health and Human Services and the land use committees here, but ultimately there's not interest in changes to the Euler process as it exists. Having an established process is useful, there's predictability, there is input for like community boards, and you know, if there is a new process, it simply does not have that feature. And that itself is a cause for concern, you know, assuring that the public, particularly community boards, have some form of input and that input is not further limited is important. We talked about the 60-day window. The 60-day window is there's no opportunity to cut it, but I think there was concern about the sequencing. And so just noting that there's value in speaking prior to the borough president. And then there is a note on member deference where, you know, I think that there was discussion on it, but ultimately there's not interest in removing any sort of deference to local council member, and that it could have, you know, implications that sort of extend beyond, you know, the housing element here. So that was, I think, the note there. City map, another opportunity to say that we're not interested in the move of I guess of the tower from the boroughs to City Hall. On Linex, some of these have a little bit of overlap with land use, but was some support to allow the city to make very de minimis changes to correct inaccuracies in the city map. This is a particular problem with waterfronts and has limited resilient ability to perform resiliency projects.
Hi, everyone.
There was support for the city being able to raise grade changes for resiliency projects without triggering a Euler within a reasonable height. So, you know,
Not 4 feet.
Yes, yes. There are the belief that the major infrastructure, resilience infrastructure should require a Euler. You know, we've mentioned for the engineers project, these very large acquisitions of land also should require a Euler. There's a question about the voluntary buyout process for homeowners, because every single individual, single family home buyout requires its own Euler. You know, believed that it might be appropriate to allow some sort of streamlining of that process, so long as it preserves public review, transparency, and reverts the land to parkland or wetlands, does not have a, you know, another purpose.
And the volunteer part of it.
Yes,
We want-
yes. The yes.
I'm not seeing what moms exist on site.
This would almost certainly not affect this district. This is,
Chelsea, you have a bunch?
yes, no, you have single family homes in the district, the question is, would the city ever want to buy out homeowners in this area? And my assumption is unlikely, and that it would be likelier that we perform resiliency projects that would protect these areas because the land is extremely valuable.
It's more Staten Island, parts of Brooklyn that are.
Yes.
On the waterfront.
It was a comment that came out of WB and. Okay. Great. Okay, so we touched on the revocable consent process in the charter. There was a larger conversation about revocable consents in the charter, but they talked about specifically amending the process to facilitate the creation of a network of electric vehicle chargers. There is utility in, you know, getting rid of the duplicate hearings and allowing the city to ultimately facilitate that network, but there are concerns about this being applied more broadly than simply for electric vehicle chargers. I think we also would utilize this as an opportunity to note that we are on the record opposing the use of sidewalks space specifically, so pedestrian space for electric vehicle chargers without some sort of public oversight. We did, and this came out of Housing, Health and Human Services, comment on the elections element, specifically on even year. And its ability to, or its demonstrated ability to increase turnout as a means of increasing accountability for local elected officials. There was a note that we do not support open primary elections, and his question as to if we want to comment on that, because it is a somewhat political in nature, so there's an opportunity if we wanna.
What is open primary?
Where if you have if you don't have a party affiliation, or if you're affiliated with a different party, then you could then vote in any one primary. So if you were a Republican, an independent, or unregistered with the party, you could vote in the Democratic primary, for example. So that was sort of the comment that came out of the committee. There's also in Housing, Health and Human Services, a note on the nonprofits. This is relevant because we do have a lot of service-based nonprofits that have, really had struggles with, I guess, being paid by city contracts. And so I think we did want to highlight that based on, what we've seen there. If there's a particular example, happy to highlight it. And I think that is the final element here. We had a lot of comments. And, I think the goal is to simply synthesize this in hopefully 2 pages. And so certainly worth adding and tweaking and thinking about what we can do to ensure that we capture the breadth of feedback that was here, but this is an attempt to sort of do so in a succinct manner, so happy to hear.
Was there?
Sorry, Christine. Sorry, just 1 second, before we go to that, I just wanna remind everyone, or let you know if you were not here for exec last month, Roberta gave a high level at exec, and we encouraged all committees to take this up at their, at committee, and then provide that feedback. So at this point, everything that Roberta is reflecting is a result of those discussions if they took place. And to clarify on timing, we are preparing something in particular with regards to the 2 pages. You're referring to the testimony, but we also have the ability, I imagine, to submit our letter in however many pages that is, but the testimony, and Roberta's sort of juggling both, given the timeline here, but so that there's a letter that we'll vote on here to be ratified at the board on the 23rd, but there's testimony that has to be provided in advance of that, which is why in part we're bringing to exactly this evening.
And I would propose, though, I think absolutely open to other ideas. One of the ways to sort of balance the two is to have that initial narrative testimony and append comments as provided by the chairs of the committees, but if you would prefer a different format, obviously open to that as well.
Okay, now this is, and then I'll.
Yeah, did anybody make suggestion instead of what they are proposing? We would like X. Okay, I think that would be helpful to put that in the appendix. As not being perceived as no, but having some suggestion. We didn't have any, but.
No, I feel like we did have,
And it's
Housing
in the
Service
Dropbox,
fits.
exactly, there's an
Okay,
8-page
so that's
letter,
good.
an 8-page letter, thank you to Joe and the team behind him and HHS, which produced a very thorough response to the questions. Roberta pulled it out of the document and went through and responded to that, and in some cases, there are specific suggestions. So we should make sure those are elevated.
and I do think we start with the, on the local versus citywide needs, the sort of suggestions around comprehensive planning and our requests there. So we kind of start on that somewhat more positive note. And that was, I don't know, we're trying to think about how to frame that so that it's at least the first thing that.
Well, I think on transportation, I would say one of the things that we encounter every day is that we know what's on the ground so much better, that somebody, just the example of, the approval of Sidewalk Cafe where
The zoning administrator.
nobody knows, right, they are doing administrative work where we really go into the details of it, and I think we could elevate that concept and say, when it's well done, it can be very productive.
Paul?
A couple of minor things. First, we had talked about social amenities being added to the cumulative impact, meaning like recreational facilities, gym space, things like that. So that can just
Yes.
stick that in there.
I have recreational spaces, things to do.
But there's other components to so then I think the technical term is social amenities, that's what we came up with. Army Corps is misspelled, but that's just that over. But my major concerns, there are a couple of issues in here that, you know, we as a board have traditionally, especially issues like budget needs, just so the statement of district needs, we talk about issues that we talk about. And so I think the way we can thin this letter down is to, one, get rid of the single family homes that are impacting Staten Island. We don't talk about issues in Staten Island, we talk about issues that impact us. So let's just take that out. And same thing with elections. Like many of you don't know, I'm the Democratic Party district leader. I don't wear that hat to this meeting because that's political. The elections is political. We have never once sent a letter to the Board of Elections. So I don't know why we would be sticking our nose in a fight that we're picking a side on something that we have absolutely nothing to do with. So I suggest taking out the whole section on elections. And I think that the argument that it makes people, elected officials, feel more accountable, we have no proof of that. There's no evidence of that. So I think just thin it out, there's no need to include that.
Thank you, Bob. Joe?
Yeah, I'm concerned because the HHS had like an hour and a half discussion on this. And the document that was produced was sent to all the committee members, they responded, they changed language back and forth. It would be very helpful. We need to include the language, some of that language in the verb side. It was not about concerns, it was about support, don't support, do not agree, very, very specific. Our draft document was sent to City Council Land Use, which we had a meeting with a week ago, Jessica, like, the director of City Council Land Use, who really. We were there, right? One of the things that they said, they appreciated the fact that we kept saying things like, well, what works here or there, not the same for Bay Ridge, just that, whatever. We have to get some of that language in here because it resonates with the commissioners. The other thing that's a reality check, and also, and Paul, we had a lengthy discussion about the election issue. It's a charter change, it's not a political change. It's a charter proposed change.
I understand exactly what that means, Jeff. I understand the term charter revision.
Right, so
But it doesn't have anything to do with this board.
well, it actually, this room, a number of members of the committee talked about it. And the issue was primaries are part of a party process, not about an open process. And the committee fell on the side of saying, no, we do not support open primaries. And I am representing the committee that deliberated on that, as opposed to your point of view.
This committee here is deliberating.
And
that's.
I'm right, but I'm representing the point of that committee that spent a lot of time on it and talked about why primaries exist whatsoever. It's not about an open free-for-all, it's about people choosing who they want, right? But I'm more concerned about the reality check that we were informed in that meeting with City Council Land Use, that tonight is the hearing in Staten Island, and that by this time it gets issued by the next meeting, which is July 7th, that the commission will have already decided what they're doing and will sort of not respond at all.
So they don't listen to the hearing.
We were told politically that they're gonna make their recommendations by the end of June. So July 7th is when they're addressing. So my concern is, how do we get whatever document comes out of tonight to the commission?
I mean, the answer is,
Prior.
they turn that around basically, it's a 24 hours.
He's saying hurry up.
No, from information we got, I wanna say.
I mean-
I think
Yeah,
we're just this day, we're
yes.
voting this out
Yeah.
tonight.
No,
Have that. So you can go out as soon.
Right, but I mean, right, but it's that whole point of
What?
getting to this commission prior to the 30th.
And it will be sent to them, and
Okay.
I mean, if we want to do,
That's been a process, I'm saying,
there
it's
is
weird.
that the sort of opportunities for a verbal testimony were tonight, which at 7:04 PM.
We have a conference.
It started at 5, like presumably.
Understand fully.
Yeah. And July 7th, and so the idea is to really, make sure that this goes out. I mean, it's Monday before the end of
Right.
the week, and that they do receive written testimony. And then there is that opportunity for the verbal testimony as well. That is the public input process, and those are the time constraints that
No,
we had.
I understand fully.
We also encouraged everyone, I think we sent an email to all board members encouraging people to give testimony in their personal capacity.
Right.
And so, because what we heard is that, perspectives by the commission are gonna be formed very quickly, that it was important that they hear from as many people as possible, about concerns that any of us may have in a personal capacity, obviously not representing the board.
Just coincidentally, I happened to go to a forum, which it was developers and financiers for developers, and it was more about adaptive reuse, for housing. But this came up a lot, a lot of the land use changes. And the developers are pushing very, very hard on the language. This is all red tape. These are all obstacles we have to change. Like, I mean, they're making a concerted effort to have these, and obviously some of the language that came out of your committee is the opposite. No, we think some of these should be public oversight. We think some of these should, yes, of
And
course.
some can change, here's an idea.
But I don't know if in the summary or, you know, in the preface, you wanna say something like, we don't consider these red tape, you know, this is a process, and I think you did say it's messy, or sometimes it can get. I think you said some of that, I just wanted to bring that up, that on the, I don't say on the other side, but there is another point of view that is pushing another angle very, very hard.
So I was gonna say, if there was a specific, report based on your, having taken all this in and sorting this out, you know, are you capable of identifying at this point what you think is the most significant thing you heard from the different bodies? In other words, you reference from it, like city with local, because I guess I'm just wondering, like, you gotta present something. This commission was composed specifically because the mayor wanted an effort to address some of the different zoning and land use issues. And then it became something broader because people were going, we can have 15 pages of content, but I guess I'm just wondering, like, based on the way you've heard things, is there something you would want to put at the very top to say we're in support of, or we're not in support of, or because you heard it that way? Just out of curiosity, no problem.
I mean, I think the introduction reflects
Does it?
that, which
Okay.
is specifically, there are a lot of suggestions of how to streamline processes. We may genuinely be interested in engaging with those, but public input and, ensure protecting the public input process, not only at community boards, but, of community members is a sort of North Star for, every committee, and that public input and public oversight are important, even if we do want to make some smaller tweaks relating to what I will describe as red tape colloquially.
Yeah, I just elevating that intro as you have put it forward, I think is beneficial, because in terms of what gets digested here, that if that's the biggest takeaway, it's probably just important.
And that was that weird democracy is messy thing that came out of the housing committee, like on purpose to say something just like that, as it is.
Okay, we'll make sure that language is.
No, it's not. You know.
And thank you.
So we are asking for a vote on this evening.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the letter with the exclusion of the elections paragraph and the Staten Island references. The second on the motion?
Second.
All in favor?
This is a struggle. Let's see if we can longer.
I'm sorry, just very quickly, that's. Like, that can't be right, if someone seconded, wait, there's two,
There's two.
and Christina, you raised, okay,
Yeah,
so there's
sorry.
three, okay.
I move to adopt the letter that failed, right?
No, wait, can I make a
Let's just
motion?
make it.
No,
We'll go to the motion. So all against?
Okay.
Okay. I think that's been enough
Yep.
for
Can I
that.
make a motion of adopting the letter excluding the Staten Island part of it? Just the Staten Island part.
You can add to that, just getting the language.
Make your own motion.
The next one will be answered. To sharpen up some of the language to pick up the specific, not using the word concern, but we support or whatever, and then to Christine's point, a couple of places we added alternatively X would happen.
Yes, so that, those are friendly amendments, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna pull them specifically from the
Right.
comments.
Second, thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
You don't want that.
Okay, any opposed?
This one was just a little.
Okay, Chris is not eligible? Abstaining,
And just one,
one abstention.
just one final comment, I have not been able to read the full report until after the committee met. I was shocked the amount of time spent in that report about member deference and how horrible this was. And then I read the whole thing and realized only once in 16 years has it been an issue, like the idea that, that's what it said.
Well, it's the opposite, it's been, and it's only once in 16 years has it been overturned.
Overturned.
But that's
Right.
because
That's the problem,
that's the
though.
problem, yeah, like.
But no, what's interesting is that the reason we elect these people locally is to actually speak for us. And the idea that in the name of housing, the citywide is elevated over anything on a locality, to me is so fascinating. Because I want to sit on a citywide community board representing all communities, because that's what you have. That's
But then
But they really,
This is a debate round.
It comes to that debate, it's just, I'm just
Yeah.
like, you know, the developer forum, that was one thing they did wanna push.
Yeah.
No member deference, they didn't want,
Yeah.
like, member deference, and it was, yeah.
they don't want the locality to have power.
Yeah, individuals too.
To have too much power.
Because they, yeah.
Thank you, Roberta, for carrying this for us and for
Thank you.
everybody's work on it. Okay, second,
Great job.
our next topic is the board engagement working group. We're joined by Rachel and Rodney, who have led this effort dutifully, and Ella's joining them also, who's been part of that task force. I'm gonna turn it over to them. We've allotted, I think we said 7 to 10 minutes for a presentation, and then about 10 minutes for a discussion, so just so you guys know what to expect. But Rachel and Rodney, thanks for your patience, and I'll turn it to you.
No worries. Thank you everyone for having us. Rodney, you're on mute. Rodney, you're on mute.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah. Did you try doing the presenter view?
Yeah, here we go. Yeah.
Rodney, I think it's still showing the presenter view publicly, so maybe go back.
Okay.
Let me see. Wondering if there's a way to toggle.
Yeah.
See.
Hey, Jesse, would you mind pulling up the deck?
Yeah, give me one more.
Thank you very much.
We don't want to destroy the illusion of the presentation by sharing our notes with you all, so bear with us.
I'll just skip that.
Oh, was it there?
Yeah. Jessica, thanks for having us. Exec committee members, thank you for having us this evening as well.
Our pleasure. I think you guys can go ahead and get started while
Okay.
Jesse's
All right.
pulling up here.
Okay, certainly.
I'm
So
not showing.
is it?
Let me have.
We just want to see the
Sure. Sure. So enhancing Manhattan Community Board 4 member engagement and cohesion. This is a product of the Board Engagement Working Group, which consists of myself, again, Rodney Washington. I joined the community board in 2023. I'm a member of the Chelsea Land Use, the Transportation Committee, the Cannabis Task Force, as well as I was a member of the Nominating Committee. I'm joined by my co-chair, Rachel Lee, Housing, Health, and Human Services, and Hell's Kitchen Land Use. We also have Ella Kim online with us as well, the other board members. And I think I see in the office Matt Green, Gregory Morris. The other members are Katie Stokes, Wendy Gonzalez, Maria Ortiz.
Is Wendy in the room? I thought I spotted her too. Great. Awesome.
Great.
Yeah, so with that introduction, the goal of the presentation today is to present kind of the overview of the findings. As you all know, we conducted this very extensive survey that many of you participated, so thank you for that. And as a follow-up to the survey, we conducted focus group meetings. So today we wanted to just give you an overview of what we found out from our members and share some preliminary recommendations we have based on the findings and to gather your feedback on them before we consolidate them into a written report, which was supposed to be our kind of ultimate deliverable for the executive committee.
Thank you. So today's presentation, sort of the roadmap, is that we divided into 4 key areas: onboarding, orientation, leadership, development, term limits, and social cohesion. And from there, we're using the survey, focus groups, insights, and then we're proposing some recommendations. And again, we love your feedback. And if not tonight, but again, whenever you have time to reflect on this as well. Again, as Rachel mentioned, we're really looking to share with you where we're at in the process and get your feedback. We believe this will be a dynamic sort of product.
Yes, and before we move on, I believe, Jesse, do you have the most recent slides that Rodney sent over this afternoon? Because what I'm seeing on the screen is not the most recent
Oh, it's
version.
not showing.
No, I don't. This is what I got.
That's okay. That's okay. Would you like me to share the screen?
That's fine.
Sure, Rachel.
Okay.
Thanks, Rachel.
No worries. Just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second, okay? We worked hard. We worked hard on this. We want you all to have the most up-to-date version. Hold on.
We're already impressed with the floating map. Just so you already.
Yes, Rodney gets all the credit for all
happened?
the cool photos. Rodney gets all the credit for the cool photos there. Okay, just 1 sec.
Oh. Thank you.
Who's doing what to
Rachel is pulling out the revised.
latest?
Nice work.
Okay.
Are you good, Rachel?
Yeah, I'm guessing you guys can't see what I'm seeing.
No.
Not yet. Okay. Just bear with me.
And we're on the 3rd slide.
No rush, relax. It's always.
We paid for an hour and a half.
I don't know. Maybe we're in the rush.
Yeah.
That's all.
Give me 1 second. From the current slide. Okay, it is lagging a little bit too much on my end, so just it's working through. Just give me a second. This will happen. All right.
If you want, Rachel, I can go without the notes as well. You want me?
No.
Relax, Courtney. Take your time.
Thank you, Christine.
We're happy with your work, that's all.
Yeah. It's always so.
Here it is.
upsetting.
Okay.
We can always go back to the charter conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, Joyce will give you some guidance, yeah, HHS.
Yeah, sure.
I got a lot of
Okay, I'm
guys.
doing it.
Excellent. It was good though.
See, we were lucky that WB has Roberta on this meeting, so we're just like.
So
Roberta,
you're right. I just took a note.
Yeah, we're just like, Roberta, just tell her like. this.
Okay, Rachel,
All right.
started sharing your screen.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't see anything, but there's your share.
You don't see anything?
No,
Not yet, it's coming up. Ah.
come on, beautiful.
Okay, it is a beautiful slide, so we wanted you all to see. So as Rodney just, are we good to proceed?
Yeah.
All right.
Are you
okay.
on the
Okay, so as Rodney just previewed, we have organized the slides based on kind of the main themes we saw on the survey, right? So the onboarding, orientation, training, leadership, term limits, social cohesion. And for each section, we'll do a snapshot of some of the key findings, but also outline our proposed recommendations by the theme. And at the end of the presentation, we'll also do a bird's eye view of the recommendations overall, organized by timeline, so that you can see from a timeline perspective. And we have Q&A at the end, as Jessica mentioned. So feel free to chime in there or ask any questions as we go. All right.
Okay. Thanks, Rachel. So just a brief background on how we were created, the Board Engagement Working Group. As I mentioned, I was in the nominating committee. The first time we heard about this was with Jessica. One of the initiatives that she talked about in the interview was that she wanted to enhance engagement, but she also wanted to understand better what members were experiencing. And in December of 2024, Jessica reached out to me and to Rachel and asked if we would co-chair. We met up in January with Jesse. We sort of touched base. We sent out invitation to the board engagement members. And from there, first meeting was in February.
That's right. So starting with the February meeting as the official meeting, we've been meeting monthly, first Tuesday of every month at 8 p.m. So nice and late. And the board members, it was truly a team effort. Everyone helped develop the major survey themes, which was the foundational piece, and then help review the survey results and form follow-up questions for the focus groups that also helped us arrive at concrete recommendations that you'll see in a second. And some of our Buke members also helped lead and facilitate the focus groups. So again, plenty of work done in committee or in the working group and also outside of the meeting. So once again, thank you to all of the members in the room and those outside. And Rodney and I will take turns presenting on each of the themes, the 4 themes, but many of you are on Buke, so feel free to dive in with your perspectives as well.
Thanks, Rachel. So we'll start off with, we were really pleased with sort of the member tenure as well as the participation rate. So with respect to, we had 38% of the members serving 8 or more years, while about 24% had joined within the last 2 years. That would include Rachel and myself. So the onboarding, we also show that 40% of the members want clearer guidance on introducing new ideas. 33% of the members want a better understanding of the executive committee's role. So here, and we'll just go to the next slide. So some of our recommendations were creating. Oh, the other thing is that what we learned through this process was that, we weren't creating the wheel. Some of these things were happening already. And I think what this does, it helps us focus and become more intentional in how we reach out to members, new members, or the members' experience, and sort of also sharing what other committee members are doing. You'll hear about this later on. However, we came up with the board buddy system. That was some of the things that people talked about. And then members wanted sort of one-on-one videos, and then the new members toolkit. Now, I'll ask Ella to talk about, she's starting that process for us, pulling together information. Ella, if you'd want to speak briefly about that for us.
Hi, yeah, just really quickly. I mean, I'm a new board member from last year, and I think one of the things that my cohort shared was that you do feel quite overwhelmed by the amount of resources. We had like an in-person orientation, which I think Jessica and the chairs attend with the newbies. And then there's some borough president trainings, as well as an email with all these resources. But I think what we wanted to do was help the newbies really start out, from day one, and giving them just-in-time guidance and not overwhelming. So we wanted something super concise to say, here's where do you go for what do you need to do for which dates, and who do you need to ask? Because it can be overwhelming, and you kind of don't even know what you don't know. So things like a cheat sheet, an FAQ, quick explainer and links that we think will be a great like digital resource guide. And we hope that every year we'll update this annually with the board's feedback. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ella. So, as Rodney previewed, that's going to be a recurring theme of like, oh, these are some interesting ideas, but actually I might have done that in my committee or in my leadership capacity already. So notice those themes because those are definitely great feedback that we can have for ourselves. So moving on to the second major theme of the survey, it's leadership development, any challenges and pathways. So over half of the survey respondents served in leadership roles on MCB4, and the remaining respondents had varying interest levels in serving in leadership roles in the future. So when asked about barriers that make it challenging to take on or consider taking on leadership roles with MCB4, some of the things that were noted were time constraints. That was actually the biggest factor. More than half of the participants saying that is a concern. And then others noted things like lack of information or uncertainty about the responsibilities, some of the reasons why they might be hesitant to consider or take on leadership roles. And opportunities for leadership development that members are interested in seeing are primarily mentorship. So again, something that many of you might have already done in your individual capacity, but a recurring theme. And other ideas that in order of popularity after mentorship were fireside chats with current board leaders, leadership training workshops, opportunities to shadow executive board meetings, which of course is open to the public. And those are some ideas that came up as suggestions. So as a recommendation for leadership development, these are some of the top 3 that we identified. And thank you, Rodney, for the sage Gandhi quote to inspire us all. So some ideas that came up to help cultivate future leaders of MCB4. The first one being rotational leadership experience. So the idea is not to term limit or swap out current committee leaders, just to be clear, but it is to really give early leadership opportunities for non-chair members. So some of these already existing in practice. So to highlight a few examples, JD Paul in Hell's Kitchen Land Use makes it a point to make sure members have their contributions, but also JD one time had members present on the comments. I don't know if you guys remember one of the meetings, school board meetings at the the classrooms. He had us present on some of the comments that we had on a draft EIS, I think. And then Christine, Jesse, and Transportation's already implemented a system where they ask for or designate subject matter experts on certain issues that they can select from a sheet, and having them provide comments or speak on those issues. So many of committee chairs are already doing a good job in giving them opportunities, giving non-leading members opportunities, and giving them credit when they do contribute to these work, right? So that's maybe for you a small gesture if you're already doing it, but a significant thing that we heard that the members appreciate, and I think it would be a great opportunity for future leaders. The second idea we have is clear documentation of the leadership roles and expectations. So what we mean by that is maybe in addition to or as part of the new member toolkit that Ella just spoke about, a brief written description, just a few sentences that outlines what each leadership role does, right? So what do committee co-chairs of committees do inside or outside of the meetings? The distinction between first vice chair, second vice chair, one leading the public session versus the other leading the budgeting process. So those are distinctions that we don't necessarily outline somewhere as part of the onboarding packet. And the third one being knowledge transfer when there are departures, whether it's due to term limits or other reasons. So debrief meetings between outgoing and incoming leaders to ensure there's continuity, and just sharing of know-how, any status updates or insights to make that transition fluid. And, if this is already happening, that's great, but, just to make this more institutionalized, right? And we'll dive into this a little bit more with our next topic, which is term limits. So Rodney, if you can.
Thanks, Rachel.
Carry that on.
As you might imagine, this was an overwhelming number. 91% of the members said they were very or somewhat concerned about the sort of lack of the term limits or lack losing knowledge due to term limits. So again, we wanted to look at this and see how at best we could mitigate the concerns. So first, I'll draw your picture to our sugar cubes, an ode to Joe. But we thought of, and we have these things in already in practice, the sort of digital archive. We'd have to think about how we utilize it, making it more, bringing it more to the forefront. And maybe it's because we're going into this where term limits will be executed, we will start to rely more on sort of our historical data and information. The emeritus roles, we have great sort of knowledge experts on the committee. We're concerned. However, we do hope that they will stay engaged and that they will continue to maybe act as an advisory role if they are not full board members. And then progress tracking, again, just having the standardized documentation, having data available, being reminded to revisit some of these things as well. Rachel?
Yes, so moving on to the next theme, which is social cohesion and board culture. So MCB4 members generally feel comfortable expressing their views. So this is 60%, as you can see on the chart here, very much comfortable expressing their views, which is great. And even so, slightly below 30%, so 28.9 indicated that they're somewhat comfortable expressing their views if they're not in the majority opinion. So there is still some hesitation, room for improvement there. So we dove into the open-ended survey responses to understand those concerns better. And several noted the power dynamics, right? So verbal or nonverbal reactions from those in leadership roles, whether, where members might have felt shut down or there was pushback when sharing alternate points of view. And others noted as a suggestion procedural clarity as a way to improve discussions going forward. So, for example, Robert's rule, that's something that we're going to definitely include in the onboarding packet. But overall, there is a sense of inclusion and belonging in MCB4, and there's still value in strengthening that further. That's what we identified here. So as recommendations, among the list of ideas that we had included in the survey, the most popular one was mentorship. And the subsequent ideas, so these are ideas that were ranked in the top 3. If you remember how the survey was designed, we allowed participants to rank the top 3, like in order of preference, right? So these are ideas that were ranked in the top 3 by that many people, right? So mentoring program being the first one. And there was also 73% of people said cross-committee collaborations, more social gatherings, and then other ideas were community service projects, team building opportunities, and some saying social media engagement, increased social media engagement. So as you can see in the little bullet points in the bottom, there's other suggestions that came up, such as introducing members, allowing for opportunity to get to know each other, whether at the start or at the end of the meetings. I know in my first housing meeting, I think Joe had us go around, like you usually do the introduction, but at the end, I think this was when we were like off camera or something, like had us make a comment or like a statement for the new member. So I was like, oh, what do I say? So like, but just to say, like, there are intentional efforts that we can make there. Scheduling optional, but regular or periodic gatherings to provide those social opportunities. And a lot of people actually suggested that the community service, like the coat drive that Maria does, there was a lot of fan of that. So that's another idea. And cross-committee work, just to say, I know everyone has the option to do it, but I think there's truly value in encouraging people to attend, especially if there's intersecting issues, or reminding them that they can, right? And overall, I know the committee chairs and, you know, the leadership overall, like Jessica does this multiple times in full board, that kind of ongoing reminder that all views are welcome. So that I think we think would be ways to strengthen social cohesion within MCB4. Now, we have arrived in the final slide. Apologies for the cryptic squares there. I don't know what happened, but that's supposed to say recommended next steps. For those of you who speak squares.
AI.
Yeah, so, you know, we outlined it in order of short-term, medium-term, long-term, right? Rodney, did you want to maybe walk us through some of them?
Oh,
And
sure.
highlight? Yeah.
Sure. So again, these are what we're proposing, and just because of the way the board is made up with respect to time, we started some of these things or started to move or talk about, as we mentioned, Ella looking at creating the toolkit for new, I was going to say new employees, but I meant new board members. So we're thinking about maybe in July, August, doing these very informal conversation of board buddies, maybe 2 or 3 members going out for coffee and just having really informal conversations with new board members as well. So you'll see that we've arranged the short-term 3 months, medium 6 months, and long-term 9 months. And again, we've also identified who the owners of these particular steps would be. Again, these are our proposals. As we mentioned, we're sort of working out our sort of from our draft form. And again, we wanted to share with the exec committee to see if we're on the right track, what your thoughts are. And again, we're looking for maybe you to reflect. Maybe if you don't have, you may or may not have something to add today, or say, hey, this doesn't sound right. But certainly feel free in the next couple of weeks to come back to us and say, I've had a chance to think about it. Why would you propose this? Or maybe you should incorporate this. That's really what we're looking for, sort of hearing from all the voices as well.
Absolutely. And while these are extensive lists of recommendations, just so everyone knows, there were other ideas that were shared with us once View came to being, that were, you know, interesting new ideas, creative ideas that we're happy to get into. And we did run those ideas by our focus group participants. So in case there's interest in hearing about those, you know, happy to share them as well. So with that, we'll move on to your chance to speak. Any questions or comments?
Pretty thorough job. I mean, like seriously, like a serious assignment reported on.
Very professional.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there like a implementation plan? I mean, I don't wanna obviously volunteer other people. What do you do?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we can work on that. I think we.
So, yeah, you know, implementation plan. So I think the starting point, right?
Rachel, can you take down your screen?
So we can see you better.
Yeah, you're just.
Oh, I thought you wanted the reference. Sure, if you want to see us better, can't say no to that. So in implementation plan, I mean, some of these we're already kind of in a good place to launch them. So for example, the board buddy system, the new member toolkit, we have them in the background. So we just wanted to, you know, run them by the execo to see any feedback, if there's any feedback to fine tune them and make sure we are capturing everyone's thoughts, right? So and the key is the ideal goal is to not have an implementation plan. And what we mean by that is we're very cognizant of the bandwidth of our members, you know, the office, Jesse, obviously. So ideally, these should be pretty self-driven, you know, like member-driven things that should be easy to implement. And the administrative process of like step-by-step should be minimal. So something like the board buddy system as the kind of immediate item I'll use as an example. We already have members of the BUG that volunteer to serve as board buddies. They already have sent us like a little bio with their headshots and availability for the coming months. So if the execo approves the idea, we would love to then just, you know, consolidate all the information, send it to Jesse in a neatly packaged email, and Jesse would really just hit forward and send it to everyone else so that we can now get the new members that just joined us, right? To reach out to some of these board buddies for the initial iteration of the pilot program version of the board buddy system.
So do you have a better description of what is the board buddy? I mean, you know, I understand what it is, but how much work is involved? How much, you know, do we have to take the buddy to the restaurant?
Weekend retreats.
Hey, Christine,
You know, the Seinfeld routine, like the buddy. Buddy, like-
Christine, it's modeled after your work, Christine. So
Okay.
as you and Jesse did with me and Sanford, sort of informally, let's have a cup of coffee.
Okay, all
Where I
right.
met your husband and he thought that you and I were on a date. You don't want to tell, we can share with the board
All
that
right.
when I met
Okay.
Christine, her
I just
husband was
wanted
at
you
the,
to understand.
But, yeah,
Like
it-
5 hours or 1 hour or 2 hours.
no, it's really, really very informal and a cup of coffee and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So
you know,
in
I
terms
think,
of-
sorry, just and to add to that, it's kind of a build your own adventure kind of a thing. I think the beauty of the board buddy system is the more organic it is, the better it is. And I think, you know, cognizant of the existing members that have already done this, right, without us recommending it, we wanted to also share that kind of burden or opportunity with other willing members that just may have not had the opportunity to say, hey, you know, I'm Leslie, I would love to take you out to coffee, right? Just to give them the official platform. Yeah. And you know, Maria's doing it as co-chair of housing, you know, like there are the people doing it, but just again, sharing that and broadening it and making it a little bit more formalized in the sense that we give them recognition for that work, right?
As a testimony to your efforts, guys, I was having coffee with a new member and they said to me, they go, when am I gonna get my buddy? I go, what?
There you
What are
go.
Talking about, and I'm like, I go, this is it, baby. I don't-
Maybe I'm one.
I'm your buddy.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys, it's already working.
So to just clarify for this evening, we are not voting on this, but we can, if we haven't already shared the presentation in the Dropbox, you know, you're hearing that I think the entire task force is open to additional feedback, and as Rachel just said, you know, these are recommendations we wanted to elevate and find homes for to the extent that there's interest, but we also know that like, one, these things evolve. Sometimes there's a moment in a spirit to do things, and then maybe in 2 years, there's not like the same need or the same desire. And so, you know, this isn't meant to be like another kind of top-down, hard and fast rule, but maybe some best practices to make sure that the board continues to be cohesive and strong and also anticipate some of the knowledge transfer issues, et cetera, that we'll be confronting. So, so the task force will continue to meet and refine and then bring back suggestions so that it's not just the people who have volunteered to be board buddies, but other people see a framework, they can opt in, and that will really be an inclusive, available experience.
So should we share that with the other members? So that because they could be board buddies, I mean,
Yes.
you know, if they have been
Right.
on the board for, you know, 3-4 years or whatever. I mean, I'm not making 2 years, right?
We'll be
They
talking
could
about how to form
the board
these
buddies.
and socialize them or circulate them
Right.
so other people can participate and continue to refine and help shape this as it comes to fruition. Joe and then Greg.
Yeah, just a question for the committee, Rachel and Rodney. Can I ask you to think about the idea of us doing like bios or some information about each board member we put on the website? Because it always helps to understand where people, what their background is. Like, you know, it took me a while to realize that Max worked for the Parks Department. If it had been a little picture and saying what it is and his background, then, oh, now I understand why he's interested. Right, no, but you know, it just helps, and it helps the public understand that people come with these various interests and
But didn't
backgrounds.
we talk about that already? We.
No, we
didn't
never
talk
have.
about that.
So-
I'm putting it to the committee.
So
No,
this,
we didn't.
we, very long time.
Well,
Okay,
A
so
long time ago, we had bios, as Rachel, I
Yes.
think is referring to, yes, that we used to have bios that, and they stayed on there so long that people.
People are Lee Compton's
Not,
style.
not dead, but. We didn't go get it, but we went multiple years on. So, yeah, I mean, we can talk about that, I think as a functionality component. But yeah, some, like as Rachel said, some of this stuff is not necessarily completely new wheel stuff.
I'm just making a consensus of committee that it might be helpful for everyone to understand, and the public too.
Yeah, Greg and then Leslie.
Actually, can I just speak to the board bio point? Because I do have something that we gathered from the focus group. So there was an idea for having mini bios for the members. And I think the idea was more for internal purposes, just so that, for example, committee chairs would like to know, like as JD would like to call them, my legal skills, like I think it's helpful, right? But I will say when we ran this idea in the focus group, some members expressed a little bit of hesitation in sharing their bios publicly or maybe even within MCB4. So we thought of maybe making it optional for those that are willing to share, and maybe adding it as part of the directory that we already circulate, the one that, Jesse circulates with all of our contact information. It could be just one more column. Again, the idea is to minimize work, right? Just one more column that says, brief background or something like that. Like, where do you work? What are your expertise? And giving the members the option to provide that information and encouraging them to do so because it will be helpful, like you said. I think they froze in the room.
Or Zoom froze, yeah. So Jessica's.
Yeah.
It's good, Rachel.
I hope it's not an unattractive, unflattering moment of me talking.
Well, I thought you sounded great. You guys did a great job.
Ella, you were amazing. And sorry about the time here. We didn't know where we were on the agenda, so we were just kind of all waiting.
Do we have to
So
sign back in? He's got. Do we have to go back in?
no, I think we stay on. They are going to dial in. Usually that room has a lot of connectivity issues, so I'm guessing.
That's good. I'll send over my version. It doesn't have those marks. I don't know what happened. I don't know why that happened. Rachel.
Yes, Rodney.
It's flattering for. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we just started to do that in transportation.
It's got everybody back.
Sorry. Okay.
Hi.
Hey.
Sorry, there was just Leslie raised a question about tracking issues as it relates to institutional knowledge, and so since we have new members here in the room, we proceeded. No disrespect to you guys as leaders.
So you
but-
didn't need us, huh? You didn't need us. On this.
So in transportation, what we did
All committee members.
we divided all the subject, we
Yes.
created all the subject. And then we are giving to each member a subject to become expert in. And the way the expert in is that they are coming back to the committee and explaining to the committee what it is all about.
Yeah.
So, and then they are creating, that list of letters and that list of things. And at the end of each slide, we are going to create like a blog or a page on the website, capture all of that. But what we want is one person to become an expert on that subject.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I think I agree with that. I think mine was more just tracking the big issues
Oh, yeah.
per committee. Because then when you have a new chair, they can be like, did we ever, do we have a position on this? Oh, wait, we wrote the letter about shore power in 2023, 2024.
And we discussed also doing that with budget requests, and you could kind of imagine them being like in tandem, and maybe we wanna think about like a structure that's both for the board overall, but that committees individually maintain and like feed up, so I don't know, something.
Right, remember just 4 or 5 years ago, we actually had to report twice a year or something of everything that committees did. And it was like an actual useful thing to go through all the agendas. and-
So yeah, Jessica basically just did that, right? I mean, you had each committee come in front of the exec and report out.
No, but I mean, like, we had to keep up with it, like, make a little report, like a page or.
As we
page,
start year again, our September year, we can think about documents and stuff like that. Okay, I.
Sorry, just wanna ask, do we have any insight on the individuals who didn't fill out the survey? Any thoughts about that group of folks?
No, that For me, that was a decision they made
They
with
made.
respect to, I took that as a part of the numbers. However, what I will share, I think we had 8 or 9 people who decided to go on anonymously, which I really appreciated on the survey, that they thought that, yeah.
But overall, very high participation, we included public members as well, so
Oh,
Yeah.
I think.
That's great.
And noted.
70% is great.
Yeah, so,
That is good.
okay, thank you guys, for joining this evening for
Great
the,
job.
for the work that you do.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you. Keep the ideas coming. Let us know. Bye.
Yeah, I'm done.
You're
Wow,
up
that's
there
it.
to say, but we'll have to.
No, it's.
Before we get to the chair report, I just want to acknowledge we have 2 guests in the room, so I was hoping you could both introduce yourselves, and if you have anything you were hoping to cover, we could do a very brief public section and allow you 2 minutes for comment, so.
Okay, my name is Matthew Robinson, I'm with CCPA, and one thing is Jesse and I talked about was the hat and the idea or that's interesting. So I figured I had it, so I would bring it. It's interesting hearing this stuff in terms of the rookies or whatever, and you can apply it actually to even our group and other groups, in terms of like who knows information and, oh, I didn't realize you're in architecture. I didn't realize you're in engineering. I didn't know that you're in graphics. So that you're pulling information that you didn't even know the person next to you is an expert in, and an expert for very many years. So I'm glad I'm here and if you don't want me to speak earlier, but that's.
Thank you for having me, Alexa.
Hi, as you all know me, Alexa from Niger. I'm a tenant and I don't stop coming. I'm fighting for Niger. And I see that I'm the only one, that's for section 9. I don't see anybody else defending the section 9 and I don't see anybody doing anything. Or, me coming here and asking the board to fight for me and fight for other tenants that are on low income, because we don't want to get the market rate in the future, well, that will create homelessness. And I'm gonna continue coming, even if you get sick of me. And I'm gonna keep fighting as much as I can. Because I'm looking for me, maybe I might not be here 20 years from now. But there's a generation that don't make a lot of money. Where are they gonna go? Where are those tenants gonna go? And I think about that all the time.
Thank you, Alexa.
And thank you, Jessica.
Okay.
No.
We're gonna go to the chair report. And I just wanna, again, at the last meeting, we welcomed our newest members. I think we have 7 new members. They have now all been assigned to your committees. Apologies, I know it took a little bit longer than maybe we had hoped, but as you all know, we're always trying to balance the makeup, the size, and all of the various perspectives, availability, their preferences, et cetera, et cetera. So everyone now should have been assigned, and for those who were later in the month, we indicated that they would be official as of July, so hopefully they did not in any way impact your June quorum. If you have any questions about about placement, obviously feel free to be in touch. I think I emailed all of you as chairs also trying to summarize the changes, but if you have any questions, there were some last minute additions or shifts, particularly as related to like a public member or something like that. So if anything wasn't clear, let me know. Just lots of moving pieces connected to that. Additionally,
The question that is, the quorum for housing, the new members starting July 1st, we can poll those to see if we can make our quorum.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, good, thank you. Is it-
as it relates to membership, I also just want to acknowledge that Candace Hewitt has stepped down from the board. She was our co-secretary and obviously served on committees. She has stepped down due to time commitments. In her, certainly not in her place, but assuming her responsibility of co-secretary, I'm delighted that Rachel actually has accepted. Rachel Lee, who was just joining us, has accepted to be co-secretary starting in July. So delighted to have her around this table and participating more meaningfully and taking on leadership. In Candace's departure, it created an open seat. And that allowed the opportunity for Viren to be reappointed to the board and so that has happened, and he has assumed the committees that he previously sat on, transportation and food. So with that, back with Viren.
Definitely get points for being the best diplomat on the west side.
Okay. Additionally, the other big update that I wanted to make is, we've talked a lot about the NYCHA Town Hall, which is slated to is taking place. It's not slated, it's happening. July 9th, which is a Wednesday. I want to thank the Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use Committee for being flexible and moving their date to accommodate us that evening. We have already sent out a save the date, I believe, or a hold. We'll be sending out more materials in the next few days. We received feedback that the NYCHA locations that we typically hold our meetings at are just really punishing as it relates to sound, primarily audio, and just overall structure that the sites offer. And so with Jesse's hard work, we've been able to identify that PS33 will be hosting us. So feel really good about that one. Obviously, it's a school that's impacted significantly by the proposed project. It's, as a result, also like within the campus effectively. So it'll be hopefully very convenient for folks. We will be asking for volunteers to help manage just the flow of the evening. The event is slated to begin at 6 p.m. One of the things we like about the event is it has a fixed stage and seats, which should help elevate the overall experience. But also just getting people into those seats might be difficult. People might be reluctant to sit down because they want to talk to people and they are literally fixed.
Somebody's disabled, that's inside.
All of the things. So we are still working through, Jesse just did site visit today, so we literally just secured that space this morning. So with that, we'll begin thinking through what are all of the elements of volunteers that we do need, holding the door, signage, et cetera. The school does not have any of those things available to us. So if you are interested, please send us a note so that we can, as we figure out what assignments we have available or needed, we can place you. Also want to thank,
I'm not sure.
yeah.
You can, what about security? Does the schools provide security? No. We're gonna have to have police officers present.
AV, police, whatever structure, whatever security we're doing, like we're notifying.
We know we have to have.
Whatever it is, like we'll have to do, the school offers literally the room and any like amplification, all those things we have to figure out. I wanna also thank, a number of people have reached out with really helpful suggestions about how to prepare for this event and how to execute the event. We know that anytime you have hundreds of people in a room, it can be difficult to maintain order. We know that this topic is very challenging and can get heated very quickly. And not to say that we can, necessarily mitigate all of those issues in advance, but certainly there's a lot of expertise in this room about how to handle those situations and how to be best prepared. Having a space like PS33 is an example of that. And I would just say, please continue to reach out to me with that feedback. I want to especially thank the co-chairs and Leslie and Paul. And I'm not sure if anybody else, obviously Jesse, but for being a sounding board as we think through how to make sure that this event can be as productive and respectful and appropriate as possible and represent CB4 as we want to be represented. Yes.
Can I say a couple? Yeah. So we discussed this internally, just to be clear, this will be an in-person event. So there will not be a hybrid option. We're gonna stream the event on YouTube, so you can watch it on YouTube, but it will not be a back and forth from a remote option component. So people are interested, they should show up in person unless they're confined with watching it at home and then the other component.
Sorry, on that though, we did ask people to submit questions online, so their question could be
Yeah,
Yes.
the RSVP.
It could be synthesized.
You can ask questions, yeah, the RSVP had said if you have a question, please submit it in advance, but I'm just saying. In terms of the day of the event, and then the other thing I wanted to mention, that we will have translation services. Similar to what we had at the last full board we had in Fulton, we had translation services there, so we'll do that, and we'll have Spanish, Russian, probably a couple other.
And we did the grouping, like group people.
Well, so now what's great is what they did last time, which is they use this, what they do is they have an interpreter speaking into a device, which then the folks can have the headphones. So you don't have to actually have
Oh,
groups.
great.
So
Yeah.
we'll have one person speaking Spanish, or one person speaking Russian, maybe Cantonese. And so therefore you just go up to the tech, and say you want the headphones and you want the channel for Russian, Spanish, and Chinese.
I think we need both Mandarin and Cantonese.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I know.
Are the elected officials going to be there?
Yes, they will be.
On the.
That's why, that's why this didn't happen 3 months ago.
The town.
And what proportion of presentation versus Q and A is
We're,
going to be?
we're
or
still
we're
working,
on it?
we're still working on that, but again,
Yeah,
as we. And we don't anticipate, right, that there will be, I mean, we really wanna get to the questions and the content. But we are still working through the format of the event, and how that content will be exchanged.
And how are we going to manage people who come and have this, make a spiel, and not ask questions? Are we going to let them or just say questions only?
Well, we're hoping to start with questions using, again, formatted.
Right.
I hear the concern, I share the concern, but we'll start hopefully by really eliciting the questions that the moderator will ask based on,
Right.
based on the responses we've received, and also committee chairs or others who wanna, be in touch and help shape those comments, or those inputs, those questions. We will still allow for time for the public, that's our sincere hope that that will be allowed. And hopefully we'll have mics in the audience, someone, a volunteer manning that, really encouraging people to ask the question, and hopefully having set the example of what question, of the kind of productive dialogue that can happen when you ask real questions as opposed to a stump speech, we'll model
Right.
that.
And related is going to be there?
They are not showcased as part of the agenda. Whether
They're,
they participate, whether they show up,
they've been told it's gonna happen and they can attend.
but they are not.
They are not.
This is not, and to be clear, in case you hear from other people, I'd love your help on this. If someone is interested in learning what is this project, like from soup to nuts, what are the elements, how many buildings, this is not the right. They're welcome, but this is not what this event is
That's
going
not
to.
the function of it.
Right, that is not the intent, it's not to describe the project, we discussed maybe having a one pager or some other materials. We know that there's a website that's maintained, we could potentially direct people to that. But if this is someone who says, I just wanna know, I wanna start from the beginning, this isn't the right event, and consistent with that, we won't be asking related, or I should be doing a presentation about what is this.
No PowerPoints and nothing.
We're not doing that. This is really to hear from our electeds and engage with our electeds based on the comments and questions that we have heard among the board and. Roberta.
Would you mind, if summarizing what you believe the objective of the event is? And I would also ask that there's an additional Housing, Health and Human Services meeting this week. I would also, it might be helpful to state the objective of both of these meetings, and if there is, if they relate to one another in any way.
Well, I can speak for the event or the town hall, and you'll remember the town hall came out of the board request to have our public, the elected officials present and respond to questions about the project. And that is the intent of this event. It is to have the electeds respond. Maybe, again, I don't think we want anybody giving some speeches from the audience or the electeds, but through that for them to express why they've supported the project, but to also be responsive to the requests, to the questions that we've not heard them answer or confront publicly. That is the intent for
Yeah.
that. For,
The intent for HHS, as we spoke about in our last meeting, is to develop the board's position on the proposed development.
So there will be a position prior to July 9th of the board. I don't
No,
know,
because it'll be a
or it'll be a committee.
committee thing so far, it's best for the full board.
And
That
it may
would-
require more than one meeting.
Right, maybe have more than one meeting, and no matter what, it's gonna require a debate.
Yes.
That's not a new idea, right?
No, I just wanted to understand, like, there will not, it's not like the board is going to have a position going into this town hall.
Can't.
Yeah.
Well, it can't, because we don't have.
We have not voted.
Because there's been
Yeah.
one thing, because there's been an incredible effort for the board not to have a position in the past 2 years. And now we're to that point of having one, so it's gonna happen. One way or the other, it's gonna happen.
Okay, that's the chair report. That's
Alright. I'll be try to be as brief as always, fortunately, the nice thing about the July month is we don't have a full board agenda to worry about next week. That's not for a couple more weeks, but we do have committee schedules, they're in front of you, they're in your Dropbox, there's draft form, lots of different changes this month. So really quick, I'll run through them very quickly. So first change is just getting started in July. We're jumping over the special HHS meeting that's happening Thursday. We're already accepting that. Moving into July, Monday, July 1st, we are aiming to have Housing, Health and Human Services Committee, because that is a difficult month for working. They have it on that Thursday, obviously. Just already mentioned, Clinton Hills Kitchen and Land Use, this is moving from their normal Wednesday to Monday, July 7th, to allow for the town hall. The BLP meets at its regular time and date. Town hall is on Wednesday, July 9th. And then pretty much everything else filters down the way it would normally filter down. And Greg already announced this at Clue, just making sure Clue understands the difficulty in their situation slightly is that they meet on July 21st. And our full board is on July 23rd, so there's not a lot of time to, produce letters. The only other thing I wanted, right, so of course, and also just please know that July 23rd is our full board meeting. July 24th will be our social event. So our annual social event, again, we're aiming to have it at the High Line in the space we normally have at full board meetings last time.
You send the invite out already?
Yeah.
I have done a save the date. I have done official. The other thing I just wanted to highlight, obviously August, we pretty much, with the exception of BLP, shut down. And then we come back in September. September, I think is predominantly okay, but I wanted to highlight the big thing, which is October's full board. We cannot meet on its set date, so we're actually meeting right now on the Tuesday before. So that's September 30th is October's full board. I will shoot that out in an email to everyone, but I'll make sure you all get it in advance. And that's it.
September.
Unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you.
That concludes our agenda for this evening.
Like, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks everyone for bearing this heat, hang out. Have a great week. Vote tomorrow.